Well, for all the latest, we can cross now to our correspondent in Beirut, Nabih Boulos. Just tell us a bit more about what happened there today, Nabih.
Well, so the protest began at around 9 a.m. and it took place actually about 1 kilometer away from the U.S. Embassy, which is in Al-Qar, which is this area north of Beirut, up on a hill. And so the protesters had actually been limited to the road about 1 kilometer away. And it began peacefully enough. I mean, you had people coming in through the highway, in these buses waving Palestinian and Lebanese flags. You also had the occasional communist hammer and sickle making an appearance. And there was cheering, debka dancing, and of course one woman on a PA system saying the U.S. Embassy was the place of spying, of betrayal to the Zionists. And then at some point in time, it turned violent. As you said, you had protesters throwing stones at the riot police as they tried to go up further road towards the embassy, police deploying water cannons, tear gas canisters. After about 3 hours, the riot police seemed to have enough. They basically lobbed many more tear gas canisters to clear the courtyard. But then some protesters remained. And then, of course, they surged forward, the riot police, and they started chasing after people. There was some beatings and some arrests, as you said. And it wasn't clear, of course, how many.
Yeah, dramatic scenes. The pictures there we're just looking at. Yeah, really quite tense. And of course, Israel occupied southern Lebanon for about 22 years. And that's fresh in the memory of many Lebanese people, because that occupation only came to an end 17 years ago. And then 11 years ago, Israel fought a war against Hezbollah in Lebanon. That resulted in the deaths of hundreds of Lebanese civilians. So do you think it's fair to say the Lebanese people are united in their anger at this decision by President Donald Trump to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel?
Well, it's worth mentioning that we have about 400,000 to 500,000 Palestinians in Lebanon, and that includes the original diaspora from 1967 and 1948 and their descendants, and they're quite marginalized in Lebanese society. Nevertheless, there was some unity here. You had Palestinians and Lebanese today, but at the same time, this in a larger sense is refracted through the larger conflicts in the region, specifically between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So, of course, you'll have one side inevitably saying that if all these resources hadn't been wasted in these proxy wars in Syria, and Iraq, and Yemen, then we wouldn't be in this situation, and Trump wouldn't have been emboldened enough to actually go through this step. And, of course, they point out that this came after all these great deals with Trump, with hundreds of billions of dollars invested by Saudi Arabia and others to woo him. But then, of course, you'll have others talking about how Lebanon must continue in the policy of disassociation, and this making sure that basically the Lebanon is staying away from being involved in any external conflict, so that no party here will bring all the regional wars around Lebanon into Lebanon itself. So they tell you that Hezbollah should not step up its attacks against Israel because of this decision.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing. That was going to leave it there. Yeah, indeed it is.